Web Marketing That Works, episode 101.
Welcome to the Web Marketing That Works podcast. Come behind the scenes of real-life marketing experiments and listen in as amazing guests confess the truth about what really works. Now, here are your hosts, Adam Franklin and Toby Jenkins.
Hi there. My name is Toby Jenkins, and this is the Web Marketing That Works podcast. Thanks for joining me. On this show, we take you behind the scenes of our guests' business and web marketing experiments, and we share the good, the bad, and the ugly. We go looking for methods and tips to help you accelerate your learning and to grow your business. So in this show, I'm talking with Dan Cadden, who is the co-founder of Connect 5 Media, an app development company in the UK. We discuss a heap of stuff, and particularly he shares his business journey from being a service provider to a product maker and ultimately to now being an app incubator as well, and how that transition has occurred. And one of the stories that he shares was how he was able to pinpoint and then market to a captive audience. And that identifying that opportunity really helped him to realize that there was a product to be made as opposed to just building a service business. And so that was where he identified the opportunity and was able to scale. And so that's a really interesting story there. He also shares how he believes apps are best used in business. So I'd encourage you to keep your ears out for that one. I learned a ton. I really hope you enjoyed the episode too. This show is brought to you by our book, Web Marketing That Works, and specifically the bonus 33 free templates that go with it. You can download them from bluewiremedia.com.au/book. Let's get into it. So Dan, thanks so much for coming on the show, mate. It's awesome to have you.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Dan, just before we get started, I'm really excited to jump into your business journey with Connect 5 Media. But what fires you up each morning? How do you get underway?
I think the things that sort of keep me driven is basically the same reason why I got involved in this business in the first place. It's just, regardless of what sort of situation I am in any one time, what keeps me driven is the feeling and the notion that each day I'm moving forward closer to sort of where I want to be, and sort of, obviously the importance of enjoying the journey as well, but just getting a visual representation both from the business and the life that things are always progressing. That's what sort of keeps me juiced, I think.
Yeah, cool. And is there a particular way you visualize that stuff, or?
No, not necessarily at the moment. It's more sort of basically with the business and stuff. We do a lot in terms of spreadsheeting and putting together all the numbers and stuff, which I think helps a lot. More often than not, where I think we are in terms of where we're moving forward and stuff, obviously is generally vastly different to what it appears to be once we sort of crunch the numbers and put things together, and then a lot of visual aspects in terms of the way we do the numbers to sort of see where we are, where we're going, and sort of do our forecast that way.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. So, mate, where are you now, actually, for the sake of
just sitting in our Glasgow office in the beautiful, cloudy, cold sort of summer's day.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, it's only a bit of a cold day here in Sydney as well, so getting towards night time. But, mate, so tell us a bit more about Connect 5 Media, how you got started, what's been the progress to bring you up today?
Sure. So Connect 5 Media came about, is basically entails myself and my Scottish business partner, Ian. So we met years ago when I was living in Glasgow and having I had a totally different company, which was vastly different. I was sort of 30 staff strong. I was in a totally different industry and in this sort of a hair makeup photography world. It was a traditional sort of physical business with huge overheads, a lot of people management and things like that, very stressful, long hours. And I'd always been interested in tech. I'd always been interested in design. I was particularly interested in when apps came about and where that was going to go and longevity it appeared that would have, and just the excitement surrounding it and everything. I think a lot of people sort of fell into that trap. And all of a sudden it gave people, I think, the notion of accessibility to be able to come up with a great idea and have the ability now to sort of go and sort of present that on a world stage. So I definitely got caught up in that, and at the same time was realizing with my existing business that I was really totally against the reason I sort of left Australia and and the style of business that I wanted to have based on, the readings of people like Tim Ferriss and things like that. So with a bit of fate playing its hand, I met my business partner. He was actually very interested in photography. And long story cut short, I ended up giving him an opportunity to sort of continue with the photography journey with my business. And he was looking to sort of get back into the tech side of things. He had a tech company for 7 years prior, which was based in sort of websites, email marketing, and of the like. I was very keen to get involved with apps. And then I ended up realizing that I wanted to finish up with the other business and really focus all my energies and attentions on this style of business. And we ended up joining forces and setting up Connect 5 Media pretty soon after.
Fantastic. And what was that transition like in terms of winding up your activity in one business and moving on to the new?
Very interesting. It had been coming a long time. There was a lot of challenges with the other business and the inability to sort of do what we wanted to do because of the company we were involved with. And I sort of expressed that to my business partner over a number of months. And then basically it was a weird transition because on the evening that I actually rang and said, look, I'm sort of going to be wrapping this up in a couple of months. I'm happy to sort of give you as much notice as you need. And then he sort of accepted that was coming. And then an hour later, I had dinner with my new business partner and we basically started Connect 5 Media then and there.
Right.
So it was a very quick transition.
Yep. Fantastic. And so how long's Connect 5 Media been around, and can you share a bit more about the business now in terms of team, the core of the work that you do?
Sure. So Connect 5 Media is now one of two businesses, or one of three that we're involved in, and that was the original business. What we did originally was we particularly focused on building apps for businesses. As we grew the company organically, we didn't have the luxury to sort of sit around a table, come up with a brilliant idea, fund that, and then put that to market and hope that it would be a success. Obviously, as most people know, there's a very small percentage of those sorts of app businesses that sort of get off the ground and are a success. So our business model was particularly focused on a residual-based business model. We would initially charge an upfront and a fairly modest at this time upfront design and development fee to a business, and then an ongoing monthly service agreement, which would enable them to access their app via CMS, just like you would a normal WordPress website or anything like that, and also give them the ability to connect directly with their customers via things like push notifications, integration of social media and things like that. Then early last year, we ended up setting a side business called Connect 5 Food Ordering. And this was basically because we ended up finding that we were doing quite a lot in the food industry. And we had noticed by dealing with certain restaurant clients and things like that in regard to the app product that we were delivering. And I'm sure I forget the name of the one in Australia, but there's a huge company here called Just Eat, which is basically like an aggregator.
Menu log.
Yeah, exactly the same sort of thing.
Sure.
So over here, Just Eat, we found a lot of these restaurants were getting very annoyed. Just Eat were a big aggregator that had basically created the market in the UK, especially for anything from your small takeaway that didn't have a website or any online presence or any ability for people to order from a mobile device. So Just Eat grew very, very quickly, created this marketplace where you could basically order from any restaurant via the one app, which would obviously have all of the different restaurants listed on that app. We found after the sort of the buzz and everything had died down, a lot of the restaurants and takeaways that we were dealing with and developing apps for were very annoyed based on the fees that they were charging, the loss of control they had with their ability to market directly with their customers, and basically just generally, not having access or control over their existing customers anymore. So based on that, we saw an opportunity and set up a different company and incorporated a food ordering ability. So a long story cut short, we would focus on these businesses. We would not compete with Just Eat, but we would offer them complementary offering, which would include an app, a food ordering system, a website if they needed, the ability for people to order from social media accounts such as Facebook, and then to sit down and teach these restaurants how to utilize Just Eat as the aggregator to send them new business, and then how to sort of promote to those customers and change their habits so they would come across and start ordering direct from the business. So They could have access to analytics. We would sell it for a lot cheaper than what Just Eat was charging. and we'd give them the ability to directly communicate and have the data from their customers so they could strengthen their own brand rather than that of Just Eat.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. And so that's been the focus there. And you mentioned a third company as well?
Yeah, so the third company was sort of the working started at the end of last year and then basically hit the ground running and have just done a trial recently. We have a share in a startup I got involved with called One Menu. And we're just in the process of completing a trial with a core hotels group at the Tour Eiffel Pullman Hotel in Paris. And basically, it's just the one app we're focusing on called One Menu. And effectively, all it does is gives the customer the ability when they go into the restaurant or the hotel or order room service and the menu's in French or French and English, the ability to bring up the app and have that menu previously translated and accessible in whatever language that they speak.
Fantastic.
And then with the view now, it seems to have evolved and it's going to be very focused on room service. So we're looking to build an app which is all encompassing that will allow them to order room service, to read the menu, be able to check in and the like. So yeah, that's a little bit of a side project that we're currently working on. And it sort of created an opportunity where we started also looking, rather than just developing apps as a supplier, connecting with people whose ideas we thought were valid and had legs, and partnering with them and developing and using our services for a share of the company rather than a sort of a direct payment and acting as a supplier.
Yeah, great. Interesting. And so are you using, so across those three companies, are you using the same team?
Yeah, so with Connect 5 Media and Connect 5 Food, we've certainly got the same team. Connect 5 Food, we're about to sort of join. We're looking for a second round of funding for that company with a much, much larger team, a big development company in Scotland that are about 65 strong, that we're looking to sort of join forces with, both on a sort of financial and a tech provisional sense as well, which is basically moving towards developing a much more integrated food ordering platform that we can look to sell B2B globally rather than just the B2C, which we've done up until now. But then with One Menu, it's actually myself and two French ladies form the company, and then we're looking to sort of take on more there. But we sort of utilize my team when there's sort of legwork to be done and things like that.
Yeah, cool. That's sort of going from service-based, in terms of your developing apps, to product development, as the food ordering side of things, to, almost an app incubator. That's a fair transition over 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, when we started, we didn't really know what we were doing. We just knew that we wanted to be in this sort of field, and then it's funny how it just sort of naturally evolves, really, over and above what you could sort of really predict. It's just we found, the apps was great to get in on the business side, then sort of the food ordering thing came about, and we managed to find a point of difference whereby we weren't just providing an app for the restaurant. We weren't providing just a food ordering package, but we basically looked at everything that we'd done in the past and just put together the one package, which seemed to work quite well. And then now moving into what ourselves and this other company we're getting involved in think was the next best move, and actually productizing something that we could sort of white label and then sort of go into the B2B market and focus, which was initially the focus is to have everything online, because we certainly didn't want to get into a stage, although we've built everything offline predominantly up to this point, we certainly didn't want to get into a stage like the last business where we were managing, sort of a team of 50 salespeople, anything like that. Because the whole reason really, I think, for myself to get involved was to, if not straight away, definitely in the future, to still be in that location independent sort of position where we could run it and anywhere in the world. So I could look to maybe come back to my roots and land back in Australia at some stage.
It'd be good to have you home, mate. That is an incredible journey. In terms of that, how has your sort of marketing philosophy changed or evolved? Because that's quite an evolution for the business and the focus, obviously. How has that philosophy changed over time?
I think for us, it's focusing specifically on how we've built our business up until now and how we plan to in the future. I think it's changed 100%, really. I mean, what we found quite interesting and weird when we look back is we're a tech company building app development and websites, yet our website up until now, and we're spending a lot of time and prioritizing it to sort of get it to a point where we can showcase all of the information and testimonials and things that we've done up until now has really been like a mechanic's car. We were building websites that clients loved and at a good price point and things like that, yet our own website was very limited and sort of, I don't think, really presenting us in the light that we wanted to be presented in. Also, we built our business 99% offline pretty much, which seemed quite strange considering that, we were going out there and promoting digital and how to utilize digital for these businesses and sort of promote through those channels. So I think, greatly with the help of reading the stuff that you and Adam have put together in Blue Wire Media over the years, and especially, the book and the course, it's really helped us to sort of twist that around, both for that reason and the reason that now we're looking to sell something globally. So we couldn't really build it offline and focusing on a particular product rather than just providing a service to individual businesses. It sort of made a lot of sense for us to really take stock and educate ourselves in how to build this sort of following and this sort of network online, which has been exciting and certainly something that I think fits a lot more in terms of personally where I would want to be in the future and from a business sense, how we'll look to grow and sort of develop our market from there.
Yeah, that's cool. I am intrigued as well just about that across that transition in terms of, and you're building offline and how you sort of refined your offering, kind of why you refine and why you transition, literally just because, the service, well, I guess I'll leave it up to you to answer, but how did the service suddenly become a product and then realize that, you could be an incubator? How did that happen in terms of sort of finding that market? Was it finding a market fit, product market fit, or?
Yeah, so basically originally, the great thing was, and it was quite funny, we officially launched the food ordering side, which is really our focus these days in terms of selling the package, which, incorporates a mobile version of their website if they don't have it, or building them a responsive one, an app, a food ordering platform that goes across all those channels, a marketing pack, and then the ongoing support and assistance in which to sort of utilize all those assets with coupon systems and loyalty offers and things. But the funny thing was, it really was born out of the combined frustration that I started noticing with our restaurant clients who we were offering apps to, and then led me to sort of do a bit further research and see what was happening with this market that Just Eat had literally created, which didn't exist before, but then noticed that they were getting quite greedy. People weren't very happy with their customer service. And then they actually had an event called the Takeaway Innovation Expo, which they run each year or since they've been around, which is quite funny, really, because it's something that they are the major sponsor for. They spend a lot of money on, and yet they're developing a marketplace where there's a lot of companies such as ourselves that are literally using their database to sort of target and sell them their own wares. So initially, we saw it as an opportunity to capitalize on the fact that there were so many customers of Just Eats, and a lot of them seemed to be quite annoyed with their offering.
That's a really captive audience. You've pinned it down to a niche quite beautifully there, haven't you?
Yeah, it was. And the funny thing was, we're just a small tech company. There was no way that we were looking to compete with them by any means, but we felt that our offering could be something that could complement them, because the way I figured was that Just Eat are promoting themselves as something that brings the restaurant more customers. But in actual fact, what was happening is they were maybe bringing the restaurant a couple of new customers at the start. However, what was happening is they were cannibalizing their efforts, and restaurants' own customers would then all start going through this channel because people want to be mobile. They want to order through that channel, and therefore they lost all contact with their customers. They instantly lost a large percentage, up to 14% of their revenue.
Wow.
Because people who would normally come in or ring or email were now going through that channel, and they had no access to any data analytics. So we saw a big opportunity, and Just Eat customers became our marketplace. And we literally scraped the data and engaged a call center to ring all the customers and set up appointments. And that's really how we got the ball rolling.
Wow. Awesome. Identify the problem and create an offer to fit it. Hey, that's great.
Yeah. And so the funny thing was, it was all sort of offline because whether that was correct or not, or whether we were naive or didn't have the knowledge in online at that stage, we saw that as the quickest way just to sort of go direct. However, now building a product and wanting to have a brand that we can sell globally to restaurants directly, we see much more valuable in learning the online side of things.
Yeah.
To be able to expand in that way.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Mate, so if we can, I'd love to jump into apps because, this is something that we get asked about quite a lot. You've built an entire app platform for the ordering, but I'm interested, where do you start when it comes to building apps? Like, where have you seen apps be really relevant to a business? Because I kind of feel as though the people who I talk to about apps are trying to figure out even if they could use one.
Sure.
And I'd be interested, with your experience in doing it many times for many people, what is the area that an app can really help a business with?
Well, when we started out, we that was the exact question we sort of came up with. We had a particular focus on apps for business.
Yep.
Purely from a point of view in terms of having a business model whereby we could quite quickly build up a foundation and sort of, grow because we were growing organically. And certainly being an app development company that came up with great ideas, what wasn't really going to sort of pay the bills, especially in the first instance, but it's something that we're interested in now. So we looked at a commonality between features that were effective, and a lot of the apps seemed to be the industries that we're looking at were industries that were very service orientated, where there was interaction between the business and a customer. And that really we could really break it down into sort of, 20 to 30 features maximum really that were really powerful and could be utilized and repackaged across the board to service these industries such as restaurants, hair salons. We've done apps. If I look through the ones that we've got live now, e-commerce. So like we've done watch company, a membership sort of business whereby there's a London-based company that we did an app for, which was pretty much the first client that we brought on actually, which allows people to jump on, register for the guest list or to book a table, find out all the clubs that are participating, allow the business to communicate directly with its users via use of push notifications. So we sort of worked out that there was 10 to 15 to 20 features that could be used across all of these different industries effectively, integrating in the social media, creating what we call like a fan wall, which would allow users of the app to both connect with the business and each other.
Gotcha.
And then the sort of promotional side of things, which was very good for bars, restaurants, takeaways, where people taking away like the sort of the stamp card that a lot of coffee shops and things have and implementing that into the app. So trying to take all of the marketing efforts and ways of communication that the business currently used or could use and packaging that up into a set of features into an app and using that as the main between, giving the business a direct form of contact between them and their customer.
Yeah. Well, that makes a heap of sense. And so, and in terms of then building that out, I guess perhaps that's what you did is you sort of, which ones did you start with? Which are the ones that you have found are most commonly requested by clients?
The industries were sort of the core industries I think we really started were things like, and with varying degrees of success. If I look through things, definitely the restaurant industry, service-based industries like gyms, hair salons, spas, things that is it because it's sort of the regular touch points, you're trying to get people to come back? Is that the sort of theme throughout those? Yeah, I think so. Something where, definitely your customers are not coming in and engaging with your business once to sort of buy a one-off item, but certainly ones where there's maybe a membership or it's a service-based industry where if you do a good job, they're going to come back on a regular basis. So there is the benefit then of having a tool whereby you can market to them, keep them informed of updates. They can utilize the app to sort of get loyalty features and stuff while they're in the store.
Yep.
And there's definitely like the two-way channel of communication that's going to strengthen the business, which an app can definitely facilitate.
And have you seen it work at all in professional services?
We haven't done a huge amount in that arena, and I think we found the challenge was there. There's a few things that we believe differentiate an app from a mobile website, and it seems to be becoming less and less these days, but certainly push notifications was pretty much the predominant aspect or sort of tab.
Notifications being notifications straight to your phone sort of thing, like a text message.
That's right. So we saw that as a much more powerful means of a text message, and that could be sent to anyone who had the app. Originally that was just a little bit of text, and then it sort of developed into something that could be a visual offer. It could be, we could send it so that when the push notification was opened, it would open the app at a certain tab. The push notification could also be a URL, which could be a promotional video or a certain page that the business wanted to present to the user. So it started to develop a lot, and then it also started having the smarts to be able to be sent via geolocational on a geolocational basis.
Yeah,
and
can you walk through that for those who aren't familiar with geolocation?
So geolocation is simply, when a push notification was initially sort of developed, it was basically sending to everyone who had downloaded the app, over and above those who have got the ability to sort of choose to not have that process happen via their phone. And then what we could do is geolocational is being able to pinpoint a certain geolocation and a radius, which would bring up and filter down and find out which people had the app in that sort of area and only send push notifications to those users.
So what's a real life example of that?
So for example, we have a chain of Mexican restaurants in Glasgow here. So based on that, there could be an event happening, for example, here at the SECC, which is a stadium sort of close to the city. So what we used to do is, for example, some of our nightclub or other sort of service-based apps that were focused on sort of food or drink or anything like that, we suggested to them as a marketing sort of tool, they could send out a message that was particularly going to go to a set of users that had their app in a particular area, such as the event, and say, hey, hope you're having a great time at the event. For all of those that have been tonight, if you come in, here's a special offer. And knowing that they're targeting specific users for that. It also became very useful for restaurants that might have multiple locations and wanted to avoid spamming people who the message was not relevant to, and isolating certain users to be able to send them specific messages and content which is only suitable for, certain locations.
Like if they were walking past a store or something like that?
Yeah, so that method was basically sending them out a message to a particular area. Then what was developed was what's called geofencing. And geofencing was very exciting and quite powerful, because geofencing was setting up a particular fence. For example, we had a Mexican place that had created a new location at the train station. So we set up a geofence, which means that when a user has the app and they walk into this physical GPS sort of marked out fence, the push notification realizes that the user is within that certain area, and automatically it triggers them to send them a message. So we started having a lot of success by triggering messages to people, working out where their users would be at what given time, at a point where they would maybe be, finishing their week, feeling quite hungry, about to get on the train or off the train in the morning at certain stops. And we would know that if we send them a message right now, knowing that they're about to get off the train, they walk through the fence, and it would be something simple like, "Do you feel like a coffee? Why don't you come in, 2-for-1 coffee? Or buy yourself a breakfast burrito and we'll give you a free coffee," literally just down the platform on the right. So we started finding that this sort of
so specific, isn't it?
Targeted marketing, was much more effective.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. Mate, that's great. And so, I mean, people must hit you up about apps all the time in terms of, I don't know, whether building them or their latest greatest app ideas. What are the common questions, or what's the common advice that you give to people who hit you up about building apps and getting into it?
The common question is always how much does it cost?
Yeah. Yep.
Which is always a very difficult question. It's very hard sometimes, I think, to explain that. It's almost like a how long is a piece of string question, because I find it even hard to explain these days, but there can be such minutiae in terms of differences of two apps you see from face value, and yet one could be 4 figures and one could be sort of 5 to 6 figures to build, depending on the sort of the customization involved and things like that. Because there's so many ways to sort of skin a cat. I think when it comes to app development, we've sort of built apps for, under £1,000, and we've pitched in for apps for tens of thousands. And then sometimes to an untrained eye, they wouldn't look like they're that different really in essence, but it really comes down to particular specifics in terms of how you want the app to look and how you want it to work and things like that.
Yeah. Are there key mistakes that people make that you see people making in terms of building apps, or trying to plan them or getting them off the ground?
Yeah, I think sometimes without having the knowledge of looking at the various channels that exist now to build an app quite cheaply, and not would be willing to compromise on certain features to be able to provide an app and get the ball rolling and test the market first, rather than going out there and being very specific on how it needs to work, what features it needs to have, and then being rigid on that, which is in turn going to mean that it costs a lot more money before really testing the market. I think what we find is a lot of the time, it's great to have a great idea and build an app and sort of have a crack. But really, we find it's always best, and what we've done in the one menu case is built a very sort of light proof of concept and a minimum sort of viable product, enough to sort of get going. It's by no means amazing or pretty or has all the features and functionality that we want to have. But what we find very quickly is we can learn a lot more by getting it out there and getting feedback from the customers, rather than sort of making assumptions and thinking that whatever we think is correct, and then sort of spending the money and the time and a lot more money and time doing that, and then launching it, only to find out that there's quite a few oversights and things that we sort of have cost us a lot of time and really got us no further in the process.
Yeah, sure. So are there platforms, or what are the options in terms of getting a mobile app to a minimum viable product as soon as quickly as possible? Are there services available? Where would you go looking if someone was trying to find a service like that?
There certainly is. I mean, these days it's obviously still, I think they said mobile is the fastest growing industry the world's ever seen, sort of combining internet and social media together. So with that, yeah, it's quite strange. It was like this sort of the Wild West, and which I believe it still is a little bit like, in terms of us being on the pulse all the time. And we used to sort of see, it changing weekly in terms of other companies coming up with great concepts, other companies coming onto the marketplace and things like that. So certainly these days, for anyone wanting to get into the industry, there seems to be a much lower barrier to entry than there ever was. Like sort of everything, I think, in tech. Like you've got
any suggestions for sites to visit or anything like that, or resources to track down?
Yeah, basically just doing a simple Google search for app development platform. Just like you've got WordPress for websites, there certainly exists many sort of businesses that provide app development platforms. Now, these can take away the need for knowing code, certainly, and then varying degrees of design ability would be necessary, varying different prices and involvement that you need in terms of having the knowledge. But certainly these days, I know that there's many sort of platforms that someone with very little understanding or no understanding of coding, very little understanding of the marketplace, can jump on and actually produce an app, albeit limited in features, within a day.
Wow. What might that be? Do you know a website off the top of your head that someone can visit?
Yes. Let me just think. For example, I've just done a quick search and cool. What comes up, Mashable's got a great article, actually, the 10 excellent platforms for building mobile apps.
Ah, great. No worries.
And the particular thing to look at is cross-platform development, which simply means building for both Android and Apple.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's a good tip. Thank you. Mate, thanks so much for sharing all that. It's really interesting because apps has certainly been as I said, something that we've been asked about, but I really haven't known much about. So it's good to get your expert input on that. Thanks, Dan.
Sure. Pleasure.
Mate, just a couple of questions to sort of round us out. Who do you learn from?
In terms of for business?
Yeah, business, life, universe, whatever.
A number of different people. For health at the moment, I'm really into a guy by the name of Dr. John Douillard, who joins the practice of Ayurveda and modern medicine, and basically takes aspects from both and sort of very heavily towards the Ayurveda style of sort of health information and stuff. I find him very, very good. Tim Ferriss, someone I still to this day follow. And then from an interest point of view, I like authors such as Malcolm Gladwell. Yeah, I mean, it varies sort of greatly, I think, just depending on what I'm still focused on at the time.
Yeah, cool. No, that's good. Thanks. Do you have a book that's changed your life, do you think? Or changed your worldview?
Definitely the 4-Hour Workweek was the real sort of starting point for my sort of business trajectory. I think that was the first book that gave me the confidence to know that it wasn't crazy to sort of jack the trend and sort of leave Australia and focus on doing something totally different to the sort of corporate world that everyone seemed to be entering into. That was really the starting point for me, and then from there it sort of progressed. That was a turning point.
Yeah, I mean, you actually met Tim, was it, in Spain?
I did actually, yeah. My girlfriend at the time wasn't very happy. It was her birthday weekend. I lived in Pamplona, and I made the decision, which I'm very happy about now, to not go to that and catch a train to Madrid to meet Tim Ferriss, who was launching the initial book before it was quite big in Spain. So I got to meet him, and have a drink with him. And I actually gave him a book of one of my other favourite authors, Malcolm Gladwell, whom he had actually met. And then basically just figured that if I gave him that and wrote in it, then down the track, if I ever get an opportunity to speak to him again, there was a good chance he would potentially remember me rather than just another guy that he met all those years ago. But yeah, no, he was a great guy.
Awesome. No, I certainly follow his work closely as well. Been loving his podcast too lately. Mate, do you have a favourite quote or piece of advice that you use for inspiration?
Yeah, there's one, and I'm just trying to remember who said it, but it's one that basically I've sort of probably had from a young teenager. But it was in the confrontation between the rock and the stream wins, not through strength, but through persistence. And that, I think, is something certainly that has kept me going this far. I don't think I'm overly smart or talented or versed, but I'm certainly... I certainly don't like to stop until I sort of get to the point of achieving what I sort of set out to do. So still on that journey, but yeah, that's a quote that's sort of probably stuck with me for a long time.
Yeah, that's cool. And final question before we share how listeners can connect with you, but what's something that has become more important to you over time?
Time. Definitely time. Just the realization that all of the other sort of elements are sort of vastly inferior, I think, to actually the asset of time, especially looking back and finding out how I could have better utilised my time, how I've wasted time on certain things, and the fact that at the end of the day, we're sort of in the business to make money and things like that and be a success. But to me, sort of the freedom of time and being able to spend as much time doing what I'm passionate about rather than the things that just sort of fill up the day is certainly something I've come to realise more and more as time goes on.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm a huge believer in that too. All right, well, mate, thank you so much for sharing everything that you have. How can the listeners connect with you?
So our main company is connect5media.com. My email is dan@connect5media.com. And then from there, we've got all our social media channels and things like that. So I'd be more than happy to chat with anyone.
Fantastic. Oh, well, mate, thanks again. It's been really interesting to hear the story and all those tips and insights about app development too. It's a fascinating world that you're immersed in, mate. So good on you for really giving it a crack. Great.
No, I appreciate it, Toby. Thanks for the call.
Pleasure. Thanks, mate. This show is brought to you by our 33 free marketing templates. You can download them at bluewiremedia.com.au/book. Now, we would love your feedback, we would love your questions, and also any guest suggestions. You can contact me on email. I am toby.jenkins@bluewiremedia.com.au, or on Twitter, I am @Toby_Jenkins. Also, if you enjoyed the show, we would love it if you could leave us a review on iTunes. Thanks so much, and see you next time.